Hello again, everybody. This is Mr. Everything. I'm coming at you with another Wargaming miniature video. In this video, we're going to be painting up some Dungeons and Dragons miniatures. Right here, I've got a gnome. His name is Flamel. If I get that right. Yeah, Flamel, the Gnome Wizard. That's not a standard. I'll tell you what that is in just a minute. This is the Tiefling Rogue, Uluan, or Uluan, something like that. Yeah, he's a Tiefling Rogue. And then we've got a Dwarven Wizard, Dwarven Druid, Brimbuck. Brimbuck the Dwarven Druid. And then we also have a Dark Elf Warlock, Ayai, or Ayai. I don't know how to pronounce it, but there it is. It's Ayai. These guys are not in my D&D campaign. They're in a friend of mine's D&D campaign, and he's commissioned me to paint these figures up. So I figured I would show him how I painted the figures, as well as showing you, interestingly enough, how I painted these figures. All right, so I put a little bit of tape on the clear parts of these models before I primed them. So now let's go ahead and take the tape off. This is the Gnome Wizard Flamel. I should be able to just cut it off or tear it off or whatever. I used 3M painter's tape. Later I thought about it. I said, you know, I could have used like an Elmer's glue or a tacky glue or something like that, because there's clear parts on the model that when I painted it I didn't want to ruin, right? Okay. Because these are the Nolzur's models, which come... Okay, he doesn't have one. They come with like these clear parts, like magical effects and things like that to make it look cool. So the top of the Dwarven staff has got that clear piece. And the Dwarf's also got some kind of electricity coming out of his hands. I didn't want to ruin those as well. And then he's got that, right? Nice, okay. One more. We've got the, I guess, Dark Elf Warlock. Ayai. He's got a big ball in his hand. Just like that. And then he's got his little wooden staff here. Okay, so I've already pre-primed these guys with the Krylon paint and paint and primer spray paint. Now, because they're all different races and they have different skin tones and things like that, you have to use, you can't just use the same paint for every model. You just shouldn't do that. Now the Dark Elf, guess what? I'm leaving him black like this, but I'm going to go back over him later in a later step in dry brushing. The Dwarf is going to have the flesh, and so is the Gnome. They're going to be fleshed, and the Tiefling is also going to be fleshed, believe it or not. But I'm going to use flesh wash on these two, and I'm going to use red ink on this one. All right, and then I'm going to use a dry brush on this one later. So let's start off with flesh. And I'm just using Folk Art Light Flesh. Because there's only 3 models, I don't need a whole lot of paint. Right? I just put a small little drop. You really can't see what I'm doing because of the way that the camera is angled. Now let's see if I can do any kind of better angling. I don't want it to interfere with my painting. I don't want this this angling to ruin any kind of painting for Bobby, because you know he's paying me good money to paint these. So. All right. Let's see, what's flesh on this guy? Well, his face for sure. Those high collared robes. And it's okay to get paint on the beard or his forehead, his hair, or his temple, what do you call those things? Bangs and all that. Because once you go back and you start painting the hair, and you go back and you start painting his I don't know, what do you call it, beard, then it'll disguise any paint that you might have put on his like overpaint. Plus the washes that I'm going to use are going to disguise that as well. Okay, I think that's his ear sticking out over there. Yeah, that's already starting to look pretty good right there. Okay, keep going. Okay, so his hands don't look like they're exposed hands. Maybe they are. It's hard to tell. Okay, that looks like a bracer and not a glove. So we're going to go ahead and paint his fingers and back of his hand as well. Dwarves always got those fat hands, you know. Mutton chops, as they call them, right? Or whatever they call those things. Okay, that hand. Now, knowing that I just painted his left hand with no glove, I'm going to assume that his left hand is also no glove. Even though it does kind of look like there might be a glove on that hand. But we're going to make it no glove. Wizards don't like wearing gloves. They got to have their fingers exposed so they can prestidigitate those spells, right? They got to use those semantic components where they got to wave those hands. And like when they do the shocking grasp and the fireball, they can't be having their hands in a glove. It'll just burn it up. I don't know. Now, this is a Nolzur's. I keep saying Nolzur, but I think it's called a Nolzur. Okay, something's falling around outside. I think it's called a Nolzur, and what it is, it's a brand of miniatures. They come primed white, but I don't like painting on white, especially when you're trying to get in dark shadows and shades and stuff like that. So that's why I went in and primed him black. Okay, so we got his hand casting the spell there. We got a hand gripping the staff. Let's move on to the next guy that I'm going to do flesh on. That's this gnome. Now looking at the gnome looks like he's got a glove on. So, but it looks like his arm is exposed. His arm's the size of a toothpick. I mean, he might be wearing a shirt or something with long sleeves, but we're gonna pretend like he's not. Got to show those big biceps, see? This rock gnome. I say it's a rock gnome, but I don't know. He didn't say if it was one type of gnome or another, but I'm just assuming it's a rock gnome. And it doesn't matter. They both look the same anyway, so. Alright, that arm is exposed. Yeah, I'm going to expose this other arm as well. It's hard to see on this little itty bitty gnome. Might have to go to my 20O brush. Currently using a 10O. I am using a 10O brush, right? 10O round. I've discovered this the Masterpiece Master's Touch brushes. And I really like them. I got them half price at Hobby Lobby. They were having a big sale one day, and I said, you know what? These are on sale. I'll give them a try. I'm in love. Okay, that looks good. Now let's do his face as well. Looks like a skeleton right now. Gotta keep aiming. Yeah, I'm getting it on the hair, but that's okay. Same as Dwarf. If you get it on the hair, it's no big deal because I'm going to go back later and then paint the hair. Okay, that actually looks pretty good. Now, I have to double check the legs on this gnome. You really can't see the legs. He's got some kind of boot shin thing. Yeah, okay. And the dwarf, I didn't really look at his legs, but I'm just going to assume there's pants. Oh yeah, those have got to be pants. Okay. Not the dark elf, but the tiefling. Now we're going to paint the tiefling, but remember I'm using a red ink on the tiefling. To make his skin all red, but I'm still going to use the flesh as the base coat. Yeah, I talked to Bobby about painting eyes, and I said, you know, I could paint your eyes for you. But then I looked at these. He showed me these models, and he said you can't really see the eyes. The eyes are kind of hidden. So I was like, oh wow, I'm not ever going to get to these eyes. because I want to do a tutorial for you guys on how to paint eyes, but on a model this small, it would be kind of lost. Gloves. There's probably exposed flesh there, so I'm going to go ahead and paint that part. Because you got like a high glove to the middle of the forearm, and then the sleeve goes down to the elbow. Okay, so that's good. This model originally came with this thief throwing a bunch of knives, and that was a clear piece that was stuck to his hand. I went ahead and removed that because Bobby didn't want him to be throwing knives. That was kind of hard to come off. They had it glued on really well. That was a struggle. I think I'm going to be doing this video in multiple parts, okay, because I'm going to be painting these in multiple parts. I thought about filming the whole thing and then putting it up as one video. There we go. But I'm not going to do that. I'm going to put these up as separate videos. Should be 3 or 4 videos probably. Okay, so now while the flesh is drying and before we get into inking and washing, I'm going to paint the dark elf, and I figured I would go ahead and do that now. The dark elf is going to be painted with this paint here called Ash on top of the black. Now I'm going to take this and I'm going to put a very small drop in there. See, I've already got way too much flesh. You can't really see it because of the shadowing. But that's how much flesh I put in there, which was way too much. I probably only needed like one little itty bitty titty bitty drop. Okay, so we're going to put some ash. What'd you call me? There, that was like a minimum amount. I couldn't get anything smaller. Then I'm going to grab a Citadel small dry brush, which I have right there. And I'm going to dry brush this mad mug. Okay, he's got a shirt on. He's probably supposed to have pants. But I'm going to go ahead and dry brush the flesh on his like thighs and his head. And that's it. That's all he's got for exposed flesh. Okay, so we got some paint on the brush. And I take it and I swirl my brush in my palette, getting rid of most of the paint. And then we paint it on. Can you see that? You see what I'm doing? I'm having to force the paint off my brush onto this model. Because this guy's a drow. Paint, wipe it off. I think this guy's supposed to be no, he's supposed to be a warlock. Yikes. Nobody likes a warlock. Okay, sorry. Warlocks get their abilities, they get screwed in D&D. But you know, the power level is not always why you play a character. But early on, I feel warlocks are more powerful than a wizard. But later on, later in levels, the warlock becomes more powerful. I mean, the wizard does. It's hard to really see that, isn't it? And I'm not focusing it up this close. I'm focusing it up right about there, and you can see how I did that. And that's it for that. Now let's get to washing. Okay, no more dry brushing, even though I can do that in just a minute. Okay, we're going to do the flesh wash, and we're going to do that on the dwarf and on the gnome. And the flesh wash, of course, this is Citadel flesh wash. I think they make one of the best flesh washes, or any of the inks from Citadel is probably the best. And there's my red ink. It's also from Citadel. And when this generation of paint, the ones that were in these bottles, were probably the best mix. Now, let's take this dwarf. Let's take this wash. Blow lightly in there to get rid of the bubbles. Okay, now we got this wash. See what it's doing to his face? Perfect. Let's do that to his hands. Fingers, his thumb, his palm, top and bottoms of his hands. Okay. Kind of looks like a shocking grasp or something like that he's casting. I probably will paint it like with some yellow and blues, possibly. I don't know. There we go. Now you can't really see that with the way I've got the with the way I've got it focused, but you got to wait for that to dry, because that's not how it will look once it dries. It looks like it's excessive, but in reality it's not. Because as it dries, it stretches, and then it settles down into all the cracks. And it highlights and accentuates all the different folds and creases and all that. Kind of like that gnome. Okay, I'm going to let that sit for a second. Let these guys dry. That was all the flesh. Now we're going to do the same thing, but it's going to be bright red. Clean the brush off because we don't need any of that brown junk getting in our red ink. And we're going to bring out our tiefling. Blow into it, get rid of the bubbles. So I can make sure I get pure ink. Right, so now we got red, demonic looking tiefling here. Okay, we'll set these off to the side. Okay, something I completely 100% forgot. Where'd that brush go? Here it is. Okay, something I forgot to do. I'm going to have to jump in and redo it or add it. I didn't paint the tail. And I need to get the tail painted up with some flesh. Quite a bit of flesh. And then we'll put the red ink on the flesh. Now I'm using flesh and not white because I want it to come out with just a little slight undertones of a skin tone and not just bright red. Because if you put the red ink on top of white, it'll just come out as bright red. See, I don't allow tieflings in my D&D game, and that's why I forgot I had to paint the tail. Because I don't have a lot of them. I don't have any painted up or anything. Kind of painting. I kind of want it to be an even coat. Doesn't have to be, because nothing in the world is perfect, right? And it's good to have imperfections because it'll make the model actually look better. But on this tail, I kind of want to make it as close to perfect as possible because I'm going to put ink on it, which is going to be imperfect. Right? Okay, so you're following along. Okay, got to reach between his legs to get to the tail. There we go. Actually, that looks pretty good. But I gotta let it dry before I can put the ink on, or the ink will just move everything around. Okay, so we're gonna let that dry for a minute, and I'll be right back. All right, so we're gonna come back and we're gonna ink up that tail. Think. Okay, I think we got the whole tail inked up, so now I'm going to set these off to the side for about 10 minutes, and then we'll be right back. All right, now I think they're mostly dry. Now what we're going to do this step is we're going to touch up the flesh just a little bit, and we're going to give it a little to basically disguise a little bit of the wash. So what we do is we get our flesh guys out, right? And we can see how it kind of looks a little dirty, So you take a little bit of flesh, not a whole lot, and we just touch it up. Do you see that? You barely can see it. It's just enough to like make his nose. And his forehead kind of stand out. On his cheek. Maybe his ear too. Really, now up close on the camera, yeah, that looks kind of exaggerated, but when you're sitting at on the table a ways off, it'll really make a big difference. Okay, we'll do the fingers as well. That way his hand just doesn't look as dark. Yeah, he was looking really good. That's really good looking. Okay, I don't know if you can see it. Let me back up. Yeah. You can't really see how good that looks until the rest of it gets painted. Yeah, because right now all you see is the flesh. Alright, so the next step we're going to do is we're going to do their pants. You took his pants! I can't believe you took his pants. No, we're gonna do his pants, their pants. I've got some browns and grays and greens that I pulled out. Mainly this green is going to be used for something completely different. I got that off to the side. But maybe this brown as well. But I wanted to paint the rogue, I know it's crazy, right? But I wanted to paint the rogue's pants midnight blue because it's really dark and it'll make the rogue kind of stand out. Okay, so because it's only one little model, I only need to put like the smallest of drops. Like that. You can, okay, yeah, you can probably see it just barely. All right. Let's get in there on this rogue and paint the pants. Midnight blue is almost black. I mean, it's like the color of midnight. Say, Mr. Everything, what color is midnight? Well, apparently it's dark blue. This blue is so dark, it almost looks purple. It's not, it's blue. Okay, the right leg is done. Left leg starting to look good. Oh, the right leg is not done. I haven't done the back side of it. Okay, doy. But yeah, that's why I'm going 360 around the model, you know. There on the screen, I don't know if you can really see that, but it is midnight blue. I'm thinking a rogue being out sneaking about at night, you know, it's going to wear dark colors. But also being that it's fashionable too, you don't want to be just blacks all the time, right? Okay, so Midnight Blue, done. Now on the other hand, I've got a Druid, who's the Dwarf. He's going to wear a really light brown pants. It's going to be teddy bear tan. And again, because there's only one model, I could get away with just putting one little bitty drop. If this paint, yep, there we go. And then we'll get the Dwarf, and we'll paint his pants teddy bear tan. I wonder if my paintbrush can reach up inside there. That was a tight squeeze. Now, because of this paint's consistency, it's kind of thick in a way, which means the brush is moving it around. It's not flowing off the brush very well. All that means is I've got to do a second coat. And that's what I'm doing right now. I'm already on the second coat. All right, so the Dwarf's got his teddy bear tan pants. We're going to set him off to the side. Now we got a dark Elf Warlock and a Gnome Wizard. This is like the weirdest party ever. There's no fighters. You know, there's no fighters, no clerics. Well, the wizard is going to have a slate gray. We're just working with pants right now. Okay. Oh. Okay, here we go. I can't hardly even see those pants. I can't get to the pants. Okay, so, but I can see a skirt. So we'll paint the skirt slate gray. right. Now, as luck would have it, I was planning on dry brushing his skin slate gray. And since I'm here already, let's go ahead and do that now. There we go. You see how the skin tone changed just slightly on there? To kind of a green-gray look. Okay, that's kind of what I wanted there. All right, now for the Dark Elf Warlock, he's got a skirt, and then he's also got like a shirt. I think what I'm going to do is give him a maroon shirt and then a charcoal skirt. His cape is going to be red, which will kind of work good with his maroon top. Okay, so we got maroon. You know, I almost thought he was bare-chested. I had to look really close and see the stitching of the top. Yeah, so... my eyes almost failed me. I'm going to paint him white gloves just to make it really bold. Being that he's a dark elf, I wanted to give him really, what do they call it, garish colors. That's why I chose maroon. Okay, I need more paint. There's more maroon on there than I thought. Mainly because I need to paint his back under the cape as well. Yep, there we go. Okay, so we got like a maroon top. You can see how it's starting to dry really dark. Yeah, it's not a light color. Okay, so we got all of their pants, or this guy's got his shirt done. Oh, wait, not underneath here. Hold on. That's why you do a double inspection. Okay, so we got his shirt done. Now, knowing I'm going to paint his jacket charcoal, or his skirt charcoal, we'll just go ahead and jump into that color. No. Looks like he's got some like ropes or something tying his skirt down, or maybe they're just ornamental or part of his magical, focus, or I'm not sure, but I will paint those separately. Probably a metallic color, like gold or something, just to make them really stand out. Painting his skirt, which goes up over his stomach. It's weird. It's a weird looking skirt. Yeah, that's one. Yeah, just painted skirt, solid gray, dark gray, charcoal gray, got it. Okay, perfect. Now the dwarf is a druid, and I see that he's got a skirt as well, almost like a little oriental, like Japanese shugenja type, over the shoulder and through the waist, and then he's got like a shugenja type robe. This guy must be an oriental style druid. I want to paint that shirt linen. So we're going to go ahead and grab my linen here. Jump in. Oh, there's not a whole lot of this shirt exposed. There's this little part right here. And again, I'm not concerning myself with overpaint like onto the hair, because that's one of the last things I'm going to paint. Okay, so there's his shirt, and under his belt you can see a little piece of the shirt. It's almost like it's a tunic, and it hangs down pretty low on both sides. Oh, wait a second. He has like his shirt has under sleeves. Let's go ahead and keep that shirt color going. This part is not part of a gauntlet, it's actually part of his sleeve. Okay. For those of you that don't know what a shugenja is, they're kind of like a Japanese Chinese priest of the elements, really brought to light in the game Legend of the Five Rings. Though they were basically the wizards, because they could control the elements like fire and water and things like that. Alright, so this dwarf's got his sleeves, his shirt and his sleeves. Perfect. I'm not giving up on these guys, the dwarf, because I want to paint this center belt piece a different color than his coat armor pieces. Yeah, I'll have to think about that one. Okay, so the Druid is going to have a forest moss cloak. This is not the wicker armor, what do they call it? Padded, like, because he's got the shoulder and waistcoat. It's not that. It's just his robes. Okay. So with this being, I added a little bit too much water to it. So I'm going to have to let this dry just a little bit and then come back with a second coat of that light green. So let's go ahead and paint red for the cloak. Do red inside and out. Now what I'm doing is I'm just hitting the raised areas of the cloak with a second coat of red. That guy's wild already, man. That's wild. Okay. Well, he's not close. He's close to being done, but he's not there yet. I've got a few more layers to do on him. Some washes and some dry brushing and stuff. Okay, now I was able to put like a watered down green inside the sleeve. That's good. I'm not going to paint any more inside. I'm going to leave it watered down green on the inside, because that would be like the inside of the fabric. But it's also dark, like the black undercoat is shining through, and that's good because that's inside the sleeve. It should look like a shadow. All right, there should be. It gives depth and dimension to the model when you do that. All right, so we got some light green, actually, what do they call it? Forest moss green on his robe, and then we'll come back tomorrow and do additional steps on these guys. All right, so these are the first few steps. I've got the flesh, I've got the maroon tunic, red cloak, charcoal skirt, and we'll continue on with that next time. Right here, I really only did flesh and the light gray on the gnome, and then the dwarf, I have the flesh and his tunic and his cloak. Still more to come on that. And then with the tiefling, I just have the flesh and the midnight blue pants. more to come on that. Okay, so this is the end of episode 1 of this little painting project. Come back and check out the next part when I get that uploaded, and I'll see you then.